Hello everyone, I am Benjamin Contreras, and welcome back to another episode of Ben Talks About. Now, if any of you out there are indeed gamers, which I'm pretty sure a majority of my subscribers are, one of the things you probably have, or at least yearn to eventually gain, is a huge game collection. You go over on Facebook or Instagram or any other social media that you see, and then you go and see all of those different, you know, gamers who have like entire shelves dedicated to just a whole bunch of games, just like everywhere. Some people are even dedicated enough to have entire rooms in their houses dedicated to nothing but video games. And while that does seem like something cool on the surface, in reality, having a humongous video game collection probably isn't the greatest idea in the world. Now, setting aside the fact that getting that much stuff would pretty much put you in financial, poverty at that point. But one of the other major things about having a huge game collection is that you're eventually going to forget some of the games that you own. This is a sort of thing that I feel like a lot of people tend to have whenever they get a video game collection that is a little bit larger than usual. For example, take a look at just the amount of games I have for the Xbox 360. And that is like quite a lot for like someone like me. So, but yeah, I still love the 360. It's pretty much my favorite video game system ever made. But even then, I take a look at this whole thing and I'm like, well, I kind of forgot that I had a majority of these games, and that's mostly because of the fact that usually whenever you're a gamer, you're usually trying to find games that are new, games that you've never heard of before, or games that you heard good things about and are interested in on whether or not you would like them yourself. So you start getting all of these new games, and then you start to play them, forgetting the fact that you had a whole bunch of other games that you pretty much completely neglected in order to focus on the newer games. So then you eventually, after you're done playing these new games, you take a look at all the older games that you do have, and then you realize that some of these games are ones that you would probably like to get back into. And the biggest example for me, in terms of video games that I used to spend a whole bunch of time on, is none other than the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. Now, I'm pretty sure a majority of you know what this game is and how huge the game itself is for something that was originally on a home console. So yeah, when I first played this game, my 360 collection was very slim to none. So I pretty much dedicated a majority of my time to playing this, and I got through, a majority of the entire campaign. I did all the DLC stuff, I made a huge amount of characters, and all that. But eventually, you get to a point where you feel like you've seen almost everything in the game, and it gets to a point where there's very few reasons to really go back to it. Even though there are times where you feel like you want to, you eventually start to realize that you've done all this stuff before many, many times, especially in my case. So you eventually start to try to get some new games, probably ones that you've, of course, heard about. Hopefully mostly good things. I'm pretty sure nobody is dedicated to collecting bad games. So yeah, eventually my games collection got larger and larger, but as I started getting newer games, a lot of the older ones sort of faded out of my memory. For example, I had no idea, I've almost completely forgotten that I had games like, Dynasty Warriors, Final Fantasy 13, and all these, and like a bunch of other like digital games that I got on like the Xbox Live Store. And yeah, all of these are games that I didn't really stop playing because they were bad. They were just games that I feel like I couldn't like dedicate a whole lot of time to, because there's just the fact that, for one thing, this is only games on one console. People are still like getting a whole bunch of games for like other systems that they have to account for, because you don't want to buy a system and then end up not having any games for it. But then after a while, you eventually want to get back to these ones. And then it gets into a bit of a, that sort of conundrum just keeps on happening over and over, the more and more games you get. And another major thing that I feel like um, is a problem with a huge amount of video game collecting is that when people try to multitask on a number of different titles. For example, if you're a huge fan of, say, RPGs and have a huge collection of, different role-playing games and all that. For example, with me was Skyrim and other RPGs that I have like Dark Souls and all that. Those games take a lot of time to like get very far in. Like they're not the type of games that you can spend like an entire weekend on and you're just completely done with it. Like it's something that you really have to invest in. And when you try to multitask on these games, there's a high chance that you will spend so much time on one that you forget the progress that you made on the other, and then you end up wanting to restart the game from the beginning just so you can get a better grip on what you were playing, and then you realize the same thing is about to happen with the game that you were just previously playing. Now, maybe, I'm pretty sure not everyone is like that when it comes to multitasking on different games. It's just that I personally can only really dedicate myself to play one particular like huge game alongside a bunch of other like smaller games. And yeah, I feel like that's one of the main reasons why, while your game collection doesn't have to be completely small, you should at least make sure to try and compensate for the type of games that you want to have and the type of games that you're able to dedicate yourself toward to spending a huge amount of time on. And with the amount of games that are getting released and announced most recently, especially for games like for re-releases of certain games or new releases for, from different major companies like Nintendo, especially with this year's E3 and all of the games that were announced for this year. Yeah, it feels like there's going to be a lot of people out there who, while their game collections are really huge, they have very little time to actually dedicate themselves to play through all of the different games that they have. Which is why I feel like, you can make sure to, try to come up with some sort of like strategy for what games you want to play and what games you're able to stop to make room for, the newer games that you want to get. So, yeah, that's pretty much all I really have to say about this sort of topic. I just thought this would be an interesting idea to really talk about with a video because, I've been going through a few of my older games that I have, and, the fact that, my game collection is actually sort of big, I guess you could say. I sort of realized that, there's a lot of games that I used to play a whole lot of that I pretty much haven't played at all recently. So I thought, why not make a video of me talking about this kind of stuff? And I hope you all really, really enjoyed this video. And if you ever, if you have certain points that, you agree with this video, make sure to tell me, like, if, you have a huge game library, or if you're able to actually, dedicate so much time to be able to play through all of the games that you have in your collection. And if America is actually stupid enough to raid Area 51, make sure to tell me about all that kind of stuff in the comments section down below. And until next time, I'm Ben Contreras, and bye.